I am Captain A.K. Kalia, author of the Wiley Cat VRC book. Today we will be discussing further on the evaluative level of meaning. There's an interesting passage. Let us see how you have to make evaluations as to what the author is trying to say, what is his tone, what are his key arguments, etc. So this is chapter 11, comprehensive test, RC1, condemning the crimes of communism. The passage starts by saying 15 years after communism. So this passage came in CAT 2006. So we are in 2006. This article was there in the Guardian from where CAT borrowed the whole article itself without any amendments, right? So 2006, 15 years. So 1991. So let's see, 15 years after communism was officially pronounced dead in 1991. So in 2006 now, this is happening. Its specter seems once again to be haunting Europe. That means communism's ghost kind of a thing is still alive. So last month, the Council of Europe's Parliamentary Assembly voted to condemn the crimes of totalitarian communist regimes. Right? Communism has been dead for 15 years, and in 2006, their Council of Europe has passed a kind of a statement condemning the crimes of communist regimes, linking them with Nazism. You're aware of Nazism, Hitler, Germany, World War II, etc., right? Complaining that communist parties are still legal and active in some countries. So you're all aware that the whole Soviet Union and Eastern Europe was all communist after World War II and then during the Cold War, and once communism collapsed in Soviet Union and Soviet Union broke up into its independent states, the Eastern European countries also, the communist parties there also were thrown out and other political parties were elected, and that is how communism died. Officially died in 1991. So apparently there is some Swedish member of parliament, Göran Lindblad, who has submitted some report, and that is why Council of Europe's Parliamentary Assembly, considering that report, has passed this resolution condemning the the crimes of totalitarian communist regimes. So this guy wants to go further. He's not happy that they've just, passed a resolution condemning communism. He demands that European ministers launch a continent-wide anti-communist campaign, including school textbooks, revisions, official memorial days, and museums. Right? He wants all that to happen. Now, this almost got cleared in that Council of Europe's Parliamentary Assembly, only narrowly missed the necessary two-thirds majority in this Council of Europe. So, luckily, those were not passed. They just passed a simple resolution condemning. But this guy is totally anti communist and he wants to wipe out any thought of communism from Europe. So Mr. Lindblad pledged to bring the wider plans back to the Council of Europe in the coming months. So he's not happy with what has happened. He wants more anti communism kind of a campaign to continue so that uh, communism is virtually wiped out from the memory of people also. So that kind of a serious action he wants taken. Okay. Now comes the author. Author has stated the facts. Now comes his views on it. So he has chosen, means Lindblad has chosen a good year for his ideological offensive against communism. This is the 50th anniversary of Nikita Khrushchev's denunciation of Joseph Stalin and the subsequent Hungarian uprising which will doubtless be the cue for further excoriation of the communist record. So, further criticism, right? So, this 2006 is the 50th anniversary when Khrushchev, who was the, let's say, head of state of Soviet Union, condemned Stalin's atrocities, etc., etc., right? So, within communism, Stalin was the greater evil, and during his time, most crimes and brutalities were committed. The labor camps in Siberia are famous, where any political opponent or dissenter was sent to the Siberian labor camps in the bitter cold to work in coal mines, etc., etc. Right? So, he's saying that this year people will be celebrating 50th anniversary when Khrushchev had, so that again, in a way, an anti-communist thing. So this will support his anti-communist ideological offensive. Now comes the author's real view. Paradoxically, given the fact that there is no communist government left in Europe outside Moldova, a small nation, the attacks have, if anything, become more extreme as time has gone on. Here, communism is totally dead. Every country has shed off communism. One small nation remains. And how contradictory that here you have communism actually dying and withering away, and there are people who are attacking communism. You're just flogging a dead horse. मरी हुई चीज को मार रहे हो बार बार. I mean, how stupid, right? So he is surprised and he is conveying his, with a tone of sarcasm that how stupid you guys are. Now, paradoxically, has a special meaning. You see, paradoxically shows that there is an apparent contradiction that communism is dead, yet people are attacking communism more viciously, more fiercely, right? But there must be some explanation for this contradiction. So, paradox is always an apparent contradiction which can be explained away if you go a little deeper to understand that there is actually no contradiction. So, keep this in mind. If you know he could have said surprisingly, right? Surprisingly, given that there is no this thing, attacks have become more extreme. That would have expressed a different thing. Paradoxically conveys that this is an apparent contradiction. That means he will probably come to why this contradiction is only on the surface. There is some real reason for it also. So that is already implied here. So if you're an active reader, you will pay attention to such comment adverbs. These are known as comment adverbs. As per the author, this thing is a paradox. Okay, I'll give you another example of paradox which you'll understand. Let's say Hindi movie songs have poetry has a lot of paradox in it. मैं नदिया फिर भी मैं प्यासी, भेद ये गहरा बात जरा सी. So if you're a river of love, yet you're thirsty for love, is that contradiction? If you are a river and then you are thirsty for water, that could be a contradiction because thirst can be quenched by water. But can love be quenched by enough love, or love demands more love? So it seems a contradiction, but actually it is not, because love doesn't behave the same way as water does. So मैं नदिया फिर भी मैं प्यासी is okay. That's understandable, right? There's no contradiction really if you go a level deeper to understand it. So similarly, this we will see how this paradox gets resolved towards the end of the passage. So now he's saying a clue as to why that might be can be found, that why these attacks are going on is because of Lindblad's big bloody report, which he has submitted to the Council of Europe, right, which led to their declaration, their resolution that they passed. So in that report, what has he done? He's blamed class struggle. So communism is all about class struggle between the proletariat, the working class, right? And the bourgeoisie, the middle class, and public ownership. Now, capitalism is all about private ownership of property, while communism is all about public ownership. The state owns everything. Nobody can own a house or even, anything there, right? So he explained different elements of communist ideology, such as equality or social justice, still seduce many. That means he is blaming this class struggle and public ownership concept and saying in his report that things like equality and social justice still appeal to many people in Europe. So we must wipe out all traces of communism because communism is evil, bad, it has killed so many people, right? The author also says, Lindblad also says in his report that a sort of nostalgia for communism is still alive. That people still look back to, oh, communism, how nice it was, right? We had social justice, equality, and whatever. So, this, if you remember, this we did another passage of Funeral of Communism will last for 30 years, as some French scholar Furet had prophesied. So this guy is saying the same thing that in Europe people are still there's a pro-communist movement, pro-communist sentiment very strongly still alive. We must crush it. This is what Lindblad is saying, right? While that passage said that this is going to continue, this pro-communist thing will last for 30 years. So anyway, now let me not go back to that passage. Let's come back to this passage. So Lindblad is saying all this. Now the author obviously doesn't agree with Lindblad that there is such a sentiment because he sees that communism is dead, right? It's been dead since 1991. So here he is being sarcastic, saying perhaps the real problem for Lindblad and his right-wing allies in Eastern Europe is that communism is not dead enough, and they will only be content when they have driven a stake through its heart. That means they want to. They'll. It's not dead enough. They are not happy that communist parties are all thrown out and there is democratic and parties and economies are more now capitalistic, right? These guys want to kill it, crush it, as if to wipe out every trace of it. So again, with sarcasm, he is criticizing that how silly and extreme can they get. So having criticized Lindblad's report, the other thing in that report is probably comparing communism with Nazism, right? So the whole resolution said they condemned the crimes of totalitarian communist regimes and compared it with, let's say, Nazism and said that it was worse than Nazism. So Hitler's fascist regime or ideology of Nazism, that is better than communism. Communism is even worse than that. So what he's saying is this is a moral, ideological, and historical nonsense. What are you talking about? So now he clarifies why communism, comparing communism with Nazism. So you are aware that communism came in because of the 1917 revolution in Russia and was, let's say, guided by Karl Marx thinking of a class struggle where the labor must take over the property, etc., of the bourgeoisie and start a communist state, right? And give social justice and equality to all. What was the background of Nazism? Let's just see that before going further. So, background knowledge, a little bit, just brush it up. Nazism was the rise after the Great Depression in the 30s. Germany was in bad shape economically. So then this corporal Hitler rose to the rank of the father of the nation and brought in Nazism. And his whole ideology was that we Germans are the Aryan race. We have the right to rule all over Europe and all over the world because we are the superior race. This was also linked to the concept of Nietzsche, who talked about Superman, etc. So that was Nazism. And so now, historically, how are they connected? One talked of social justice and equality, the other of superiority of one race and therefore right to rule the world. So they're obviously different. So, but let's see what he says now. Despite the cruelties of the Stalin terror, so you are aware that Stalin was uh, there during World War II and subsequently he is the guy who made Soviet Union strong, but he was certainly cruel because he had to establish communist hold properly in whole of Soviet Union because there were other forces at work as well. So he had to crush all opposition with cruelty, which he did, right? And he was also a psycho to a large extent. He mistrusted his own wife. He had his own wife shot, etc. Anyway, so the cruelty of the Stalin terror, despite that, that means the author agrees, admits कि हाँ, I agree कि cruelty था Stalin के time में, but there was no concentration camps like Treblinka or Sobibor, like in Germany, and or the what the Germans set up in Poland, Czechoslovakia, etc., to exterminate 6 million Jews. 6 million Jews were virtually gassed put in gas chambers and gassed to death, right? So no extermination camps built to murder millions, precisely 6 million. That's called the Holocaust period, where Germans killed 6 million Jews because they thought Jews are the curse of the nation. They are parasites, they are exploitative financial, this thing, they are of a poorer, of a inferior race, right? So all the anger of Hitler was directed at Jews. So that is the extent of terror or cruelty that happened in Germany. Nothing like that happened in communism except for that time during Stalin's time, right? Nor did the Soviet Union launch the most devastating war, which is World War II, at a cost of more than 50 million lives. So it's estimated that 50 million people died during World War II overall, civilians, army, etc., etc. So in fact, Soviet Union played a decisive role in the defeat of the German war machine. So Soviet Union in fact helped defeat Nazism and was an ally of USA, France, and Britain during World War II. So how can you equate Soviet Union with Nazism? Soviet Unionism was against Nazism. They defeated them. And it was Soviet communism was all about social equality and justice. Nazism was entirely something else. Okay. So Mr. Lindblad and the Council of Europe adopt as facts. So they accept the facts, the wildest estimates of those killed by communist regimes. So even if people died of famines, they said, see, people died in communist regimes. Instead of saying it was a failure or something, they treated as cruelty of the communist regimes, right? And all this is recorded in the fiercely contested Black Book of Communism. So this book has come up, so there are people criticizing him, some supporting it, right? Which also underplays the number of deaths attributed to Hitler. So here they show less deaths under fascism, which is Nazism, and as compared to communism, where so many people died, including all those who died in famine and other things which may have occurred due to natural causes, all that they blame on totalitarian communist regimes. So this is the history and ideological nonsense that he's trying to bring out, how communism and Nazism cannot be equated, right? Then he just stops for a while and says that okay, whatever it is, if so many people did die and there was so much cruelty, And so on one hand, you're saying there was so much cruelty in communist regimes, and then you're saying a nostalgia for communism is still alive. How do the two match? I mean, if there was cruelty, why as a people are looking back, hi, wo din kitne achhe the. Those were great days. We had such a good time. I mean, did they enjoy the cruelty? Did they love it to be woken up at night by the police and dragged and beaten on the street for having uttered some anti-communist word or spoken against the party? Are they nostalgic about that? On one hand, you're saying they're cruel, and then you're saying they're nostalgic. So he's trying to bring out the contradiction in Lindblad's own reports. So, but in any case, none of this means all this cruelty of communism in the Black Book of Communism does not this. None of this explains why anyone might be nostalgic in former communist states, now enjoying the delights of capitalistic restoration. So they've been now restored to capitalism. Their standard of living, economic standard of living has gone up. They have a car. Kids are going to a better school. Now, why would they like to go to a previous communist, uh, 20 years or 30 years back in time, right? And live in the same country which was communist and be cruelly treated by authorities? So, this is the contradiction he is highlighting again with a tone of sarcasm, which is quite clear. So, uh, ideologically, there's no link between communism and Nazism because communism is about social justice, equality, right? Nazism is about superiority of the Aryan race over all the white races and therefore the right to rule Europe, and obviously over all races. And the Jewish race, which is the Semitic races, which are the Pittans, the lowest scums of the earth, they should be wiped out from this earth. That is Nazism for you, a totalitarian fascist regime where all loyalty is to one military dictator who is the head of state, right? So these two are different ideologically. Historically, there is no relationship. Communism came up based on the ideology of Karl Marx. Nazism came up because of whatever the uh, circumstances in Europe where Germany was being treated harshly, asked to repay for all the damages done during World War One. So Germans rebelled and they went along with Hitler because they found, yes, this guy will get our nation back to its original glory, etc. Okay, so the dominant account, that means dominant account is what Lindblad and his right wing allies are saying. They don't gives no sense of how communist regimes renewed themselves after 1956. After Stalin's time was over, uh, then they realized that they had a lot of cruelty had been done, so they tried to amend and change the system. And overall, the Soviet Union did extremely well economically during the 60s, etc. And so all these accounts don't explain why Western leaders feared they might overtake the capitalistic world well into the 1960s. So they were constantly, the West, there was a Cold War going on, a competition between Soviet Union and let's say America or USA as to which system is better, which will prove to be a leader, a world leader. So communism was doing fairly well. They sent the first man to space. Everybody had nuclear weapons and missiles, so there was a Cold War. Nobody, mutually assured destruction was the doctrine. You fire a missile at me, I'll fire it back, and we'll both die. So nobody fired it, right? But the Soviet Union was doing economically very well, progressing very well, right? Nobody mentions all these good aspects about communism. They're only talking about those little brutalities that took place during Stalin's time and then condemning it, comparing it with Nazism. I mean, it's ridiculous. So, for all its brutalities and failures, he accepts that yes, there were brutalities during Stalin's time, and yes, failures sometimes in some famine or some other economic problem to solve it. Communism in Soviet Union and Eastern Europe and elsewhere delivered rapid industrialization. So those nations which are largely agrarian had agriculture as the main base. They became rapidly industrialized. 100% education to everybody, 100% jobs to everybody, uh, huge advances in social and gender equality. So its existence, the very existence of communism, helped to drive up welfare standards in the West. So West were competing with them. So they wanted to show they're still better. So give their people more welfare measures to show, see, we are better than your communist brethren in Soviet Union. So this acted as a powerful counterweight to Western global domination. So the Western global domination in the world was counteracted by the uh, the communist bloc led by mainly Soviet Union, right? And India, of course, then was playing the non-aligned part of leader of the non-aligned movement, aligning neither with the Western bloc nor with the communist bloc. So this para shows that communism and Nazism are ideologically entirely different. Historically, they are came up in different times. So just comparing them and saying that communism is even worse than Nazism, has committed more, that is obviously, wrong, exaggerated. So these are the views expressed by the author here against what has been mentioned in Lindblad's report. Next para. So all this, whatever Lindblad has said, he says it would be easier to take the Council of Europe's condemnation of communist state crimes seriously if it means the Council of Europe. So linking a pronoun with its noun constantly, otherwise you may say, oh, is it referring to communist state or what? Right? So it would be easier to take the Council of Europe's condemnation of communist states seriously if it had, it had also seen fit to denounce the far bloodier record of European colonialism. Now, you all know that, starting with Britain, the largest, then Spain, Portugal, France, Holland, Netherlands, etc., including Germany, they were all colonial powers. And Latin America, the whole of Asia, Africa, were all their colonies, right? And how cruel they were, we in India know, right? How cruel the British were. In Africa, people know. So he says that you're condemning communism's regime's crimes, which I agree, Stalin time there was some crimes. What about your crimes? You guys sitting here pronouncing judgment on communism? What did you do, right? Up to the whole of 19th and half of 20th century till independent movement started with India becoming independent. What kind of crimes did you commit? How many people did you kill? So then he is trying to show how the colonial times, so colonialism was a system of racist despotism. So the whole concept of colonialism was that we are the superior white races. So similar to Nazism. Nazism went a step further, that Aryan race is the most superior of even the white races. So colonialism, all the white races said we are superior to all the blacks and browns and others, right? And Nazism said we Aryans are superior to all whites as well as all blacks and browns and everybody on earth. Okay. So both were systems of racist despotism where there is cruelty based on race superiority. You're treating a lower race or an inferior race, and you feel justified in inflicting cruelties. So this is what existed when Stalin was there. So if he was a little cruel, what the hell? So in a way, he's trying to justify, indirectly, that Stalin saw all you guys bloody killing around, so he did a little killing himself. So what the hell, yeah? Okay, anyway. Uh, and while there is precious little connection between the ideas of fascism and communism, which we saw that communism was born out of Karl Marx's thinking of, the proletariat, rule of the proletariat, with everybody getting jobs, social justice, everybody being equal, no bourgeoisie having owning land and exploiting uh, or owning factories and exploiting the labor, etc., like in the rest of the Western Europe, right? So that was communism. Fascism was just based on race, like colonialism was, of superiority of race. So there is no connection between the ideologies. So this is total nonsense, right? So while there is precious little connection between fascism and communism, there is an intimate link between colonialism and Nazism, which is again colonialism, superiority of white races over others, Nazism, superiority of Aryan race over all other races, including all whites, right? Then obviously he goes to say the terms, these are German terms, the second means concentration camp, were both first used by the German colonial regime. Germany was also a colonial power at that time. So in Southwest Africa, in Namibia, they virtually had committed genocide against these people, and those their ideas, the colonial ideas of superiority of race or racist despotism ideas, these ideas were uh, directly, given as, so from colonialism, ideas were passed on to Nazism. So Nazi parties were all the extreme colonialists, people with extreme colonialist thinking, who had committed genocides while they were, in the colonial era, and now in the Nazism era, they committed even further crime. They killed 6 million Jews, started a war which killed 50 million people. So that is what is Nazism historically and ideologically, and directly linked with colonialism. So, having said this, these two paras show that the equating communism with Nazism is a moral or ideological and historical nonsense. So, this is how he has shown that it is a nonsense. So, then he goes on to show about the bloodier record of the colonial times. How all these European powers who are sitting on the Council of Europe and now, passing judgment over communist regimes that, oh, you were bad, you were cruel, you killed so many peoples in Siberian labor camps, right? So he's trying to tell them, please remember, around 10 million Congolese died as a result of Belgian forced labor and mass murder, right? So Belgium as a colonial power killed, let's say, 10 million Africans. Tens of millions died in avoidable and enforced famines in British ruled India. The Bengal famine of 1942, as Amartya Sen brings out, was not because of shortage of food. It was because Britain uh, did not divert food resources which they had to, that area, so that they could save people from dying. In fact, Churchill played a role in that, said, let them die, there's food I need for my soldiers in Europe, right? Up to 1 million Algerians died, and so on and so forth. So while controversy now rages in France about a new law requiring teachers to put a positive spin on colonial history, so there is controversy in France with saying that teachers should teach and show that colonial era was good. It was very positive, very beneficial. So it was white man's burden. We all white men went and civilized all these other people, gave them the benefits of technology and our capital, our knowledge, and our political systems of democracy, and taught them Christianity, brought them the real God to them. So this kind of positive spin is what people, Europeans try to give themselves to show that we as colonists were good people. Morally, we had a moral responsibility to fulfill. While we all know that that is just to justify all their killings that they do this, right? So, by the way, in Britain also, colonial times nobody talks of in their school curriculum or elsewhere. There is no mention of that part of history. They're probably ashamed or embarrassed about their own history, colonial times, that they don't teach. Okay, anyway, coming back to the passage. So, author is trying to show the bloodier record of colonialism. So he says comparable atrocities were carried out by all European colonists, right? So हम सबके हाथ खून से रंगे हैं. A Council of Europe, जो सारे तुम बैठे हो सबके हाथ खून से रंगे हैं, right? But not a word of condemnation from the Council of Europe. There's no accepting the fact, no condemning that yes, we all should hang our heads in shame because during colonial time, this is the kind of cruelty that we meted out to the peoples of in our colonies. Now, with sarcasm, he says, presumably European lives count for more. Communism obviously was in Europe, so communist regimes killed Europeans, while these guys killed Indians, you know, Congolese, etc., etc., all very kale, brown log, ghatia, sale, inferior race, right? So he is mocking the hypocrisy or the hypocritical stance of colonialists and saying presumably European lives count for more. That is why you're criticizing only maybe Nazism and communism and not your own bloody history which you have. So by now he has virtually demolished all that Lindblad has said and picked hole in his arguments and shown that listen, you're trying to condemn communism, see your own bloody colonial record and then talk. Okay. And this Lindblad happens to be a Belgian MP. So he's trying to point out 10 million Congolese, Belgian bloody killed. And you are talking about all this now? Okay. So having sorted Lindblad out, now the author is coming back to what that paradoxical thing that he used. So now he's making an evaluation that why the hell are Council of Europe so concerned about communism when it's dead? So there must be a reason, right? So this is what he says now, that no major 20th century political tradition is without blood on its hands. So let's not talk about crimes. So all this talk about this guy committed more crime, this guy committed this crime. We all killed people in millions. So 1 million here, there, how does it matter? Right? What's the big deal? I killed 10, you killed 9, so are you morally superior to me? So everybody has blood on their hands, but battles over history are more about the future than the past. So this condemning crimes of communism, about history, talking about history, communism, history being bad, is because in future they want to convey a message that in future communism doesn't come up, right? So let's see what he's saying. So part of the current enthusiasm in official Western circles for dancing on the grave of communism, again a metaphor, how they are communism being dead, yet you're flogging it, you're dancing over it, saying you're bad, you committed more crimes. All that is no doubt about relationship with today's Russia and China because communism in the world still exists. So they are trying to send a message to other communists, right? Though Russia communism is dead, but the form that has replaced it is kind of authoritarian capitalism. So anyway, but Russia and China still remain wedded. China, of course, is fully communist. So the message is to tell them that listen, capitalism has won, communism has lost. It was a failed system, it was a bad system, it was a cruel system, right? So, Western democratic capitalism, liberalism has won. That's the only system. So, main aim is to reflect. It shows a determination to prove there is no alternative to the new global capitalist order. So, where the whole thing about WTO, and by 2005 full WTO regime is to come into effect. So the whole world is to work in a international globalistic order. Sorry, a global capitalistic order where there is free trade, etc. Where communist China also exists and is a member of the WTO, and so does Russia, which was a earlier communist power but yet not fully become capitalistic or democratic in any way, right? So one of the reasons for Council of Europe doing this is to tell Russia and China, remember, capitalism won, you guys lost. Please you understand that what we are now trying to impose in the world, this international capitalistic system through WTO, globalized trade, total free trade around the world, this is the only system. There is no other system, right? You try any other variation, any combo, it'll only lead to suffering. So this now resolves the paradox that there is no conflict now. Now you understand, okay. So Council of Europe guys basically want to say this, and they're saying this by criticizing communism to say that capitalism is good. So by criticizing communism, they're actually trying to say this. That makes sense because now that is logical, because that they should, because they are capitalist, and the whole world, if it works in one political system, is better because benefits of trade are immense to everybody, right? So now it makes sense that if this is the real aim of passing that resolution, then it's okay. Otherwise the resolution by itself is so silly. Communism is dead, you're criticizing it, right? Okay, so now this closes part of his what he's saying. Now, authors end with again passing comments about. So now is a passing comment which he says at the end. With the new imperialism, the new imperialism is this new global capitalistic order now being resisted in the Muslim world and Latin America. So Latin America is not happy with this system. Neither is the whole Arab world, the Muslim world, right? They feel that they have a disadvantage in the system, and Western powers who are capitalist and richer, more developed, we are being left behind in this whole thing. So they are resisting it. So that thing about no alternative to the new, these guys are looking for alternatives. The Muslim world, Latin America, most of the political parties are leftists. So there's kind of return to communistic thinking and socialistic thinking there. There is growing international demand for social justice. So capitalism doesn't offer you social justice. Capitalism leads to the super rich, 1% virtually having two-thirds of the wealth of a nation, rest 99% is left with one-third maybe, right? So there is growing demand for social justice because capitalism only increases inequality between people, and even greater doubts about whether the environmental crisis can be solved within the existing economic system. So the global economic system encourages consumption, encourages demand, whereby we keep using fossil fuel, petroleum products, etc., and we have a serious global warming and environmental crisis on our hands. So this global capitalist order, which is trying to be portrayed as the best system in the world, has problems. One, it creates inequalities. It has created this environmental crisis. It has no solutions for this environmental crisis, right? and people in the Muslim world and Latin America, developing and let's say underdeveloped countries, they are rebelling against this. They have their own systems in place. So pressure for alternatives will increase. That means pressure for alternatives to this capitalist global order will increase. So that's how it ends, commenting upon why there are alternatives to, and people will look for alternatives to this. The Council of Europe's message is clear that global capitalist order is the best system and don't try to look for anything else. So this is what the passage has said. Now let's look at the questions. Right now, just see how CAT examiner frames the question. Among all the apprehensions, that means in Lindblad's report, all the fears, misgivings about communism that he has expressed. So among all the apprehensions and misgivings that Goran Lindblad has expressed against communism in his report, which one gets admitted though indirectly by the author? Right? So, one, there is a nostalgia for communist ideology, even if communism has been abandoned by most nations. So, Lindblad says that there's a nostalgia, so we must crush it. This nostalgia will tend to get communist thing back. Author on that, in fact, doesn't accept that there's a nostalgia. He, in fact, mocks him by saying, Saleh, nostalgia has against the crimes. One on one hand, you're saying they committed crimes, and then you're saying people are nostalgic about all the crime they committed. Are you stupid? Right. So one obviously is not admitted by the author. Author in fact counteracts it with a tone of sarcasm. Notions of social justice inherent in communist ideology appeal to critics of existing systems. So this is part of Lindblad's this thing. The author doesn't really comment on this. Communist regimes were totalitarian and marked by brutalities and large scale violence. Now, this gets admitted indirectly by the author when he says, despite the Stalin terror. So, despite means yes, मानता हूं कि Stalin के time terror था. Okay. So, indirectly he accepts that yes, there were brutalities. Then later he says, for all its brutalities and failures. So, he accepts that brutalities and failures were there. So those two parts are indirectly accepted by the author that yes, to that extent, Lindblad, you're right. But see your own damn record of all colonial past. So he is constantly hitting back and counteracting all his arguments. So three is indirectly accepted by the author in two places, which I have just mentioned. Then obviously option four, the existing economic order is wrongly viewed as imperialistic by opponents of communism. This is nothing what we discussed. Communist ideology is faulted because communist regimes resulted in economic failures. This is again crimes and failures. It was both. Okay. And in any case, all this doesn't get admitted by author. Author, in fact, talks about communism having delivered so much good for at a particular period in history. Then, of course, it failed. That's accepted. Second question, what according to the author is the real reason? Now that comes in the last para. That is where the paradox gets resolved. That there's a contradiction that communism is dead, yet you are criticizing it. Why? Why, man? So the real reason is because you want to show capitalism in good light and show that capitalism has won the Cold War and communism is dead. Now please espouse capitalism. So the real reason for the renewed attack against communism is to tell the world that capitalism is the best system. Please espouse it. Let's all of the world espouse it. So here, obviously, option two is the answer: idealizing the existing ideology of global capitalism by showing it as the best, idealizing it, that it is the ideal system. See how much wealth and power and high standards of living is given to the Western world where it has been properly followed. Okay, let's see other options. Disguising the unintended consequences of the current economic order, such as social injustice, disguising. So that is the real reason for, you know, marking communism making communism a generic representative of all historical atrocities. This obviously is wrong, especially those perpetrated by. This is bullshit. Communism still survives in bits and pieces in the minds of hearts of people. That is why there's a real reason for the renewed attack. No, it is the reason quoted in Lindblad's report, but not the real reason. Renewal of some communist regimes has led to the apprehension that communist nations might overtake the capitalist. So even if there is, Lindblad only talks of nostalgia being there, people still think of social justice, that communism ideology, still like that their ideology. But five obviously is not the answer to the question, real reason for the renewed attack. So, while reading each long options, you get so carried away and say, ah, yeah, this is correct, damn it. Abel, look at the question. Does it answer the question? So remain focused on the pointed question being asked. Don't say, yes, yes, this is also right. Oh, this is also right. Now, which should I choose? How should I eliminate? My teacher taught me some elimination method. Bullshit. If you understood the damn passage, then understand the damn question and stick. Constantly remind yourself what question, what are you looking for? Which answer to which question are you looking for? Okay. Right, question 3. The author cites examples of atrocities perpetrated by European colonial regimes in order to, obviously, here other options, since you've already done it from the book, I will not discuss others. Let's see 4 and 5. So, author raises that colonial powers also their hand is bloody, right? That is to neutralize the arguments, because Lindblad says that communists committed so many, it's as cruel as Nazism was, right? So this guy says, okay, yeah, I accept, but you please tell me how many people have you as colonial powers committed, right? Then I will, accept what you're saying about them. So he is neutralizing the arguments by quoting the atrocities committed by and counting those millions, etc., etc. Right? Neutralize the arguments and to point out that the atrocities committed by colonial regimes were more than those of communist regimes. Now, nowhere does he say more. You see, he's saying millions here, tens of millions, while he's talking of 50 millions under Nazism, etc., etc. So there is no real comparison between figures, because later he goes to say that everybody has committed crimes and their hands are red with blood of other people, right? So this part of 4, that they have committed more than those of communist regimes, of course together they would have, but that was not his point. His point was to come to the real reason, right? The whole resolve the paradox. This was only to counter his argument. So, when this came in CAT in 2006, all coaching centers ticked 4. And I would admit honestly that even I ticked 4, right? So I'm wiser after that. But then, of course, I read it in a hurry. I was put in a room with the paper and said, okay, come on, work on it, give us your answers. We got to put it on the website. So at my age, I only get nervous when I'm put under such pressure. But anyway, let's come to 5. Neutralize the arguments of Mr. Lindblad and to argue that one needs to go beyond, because to see that why these guys are criticized passing this resolution, and look at the motives of these regimes. These regimes want to prove, they want to idealize the global capitalistic system by showing communism in a bad light and reminding Russia and China, okay, listen, you guys have lost, huh? Remember Cold War, you remember Cold War is over, you guys lost, we won, and now the world is this global capitalist system smoothly fit in for your own benefit. Don't try to look for alternatives, and you'll only suffer. So therefore, all this neutralizing of argument and then coming to the real reason, is, let's say in the last para, that no political system is free of atrocities. So it's not that one did more than the other. I mean, there's no point of, कि तूने कम million मारे, मैंने ज़्यादा million मारे. That doesn't, is not a way to argue. That's a kiddish way to argue. So 5 is the answer of question 3. Why, according to the author, is Nazism closer to colonialism than it is to communism? That is very clear. I've repeated about 5-6 times while explaining that Nazism is about superiority of Aryan race over all races. Colonialism is about superiority of white races over other races. And therefore, they have, because they're superior, they have the right to oppress them, subjugate them to their rule, and exploit them. Okay, and kill them and whatever. So, obviously, the answer here is 1. Both colonialism and Nazism were examples of tyranny of one race over another, which communism wasn't, because communism did not talk of race at all, right? Soviet Union was made up of so many races, and they all lived together in that communist regime. There was never any interracial problem. It's only when they broke up that, Ukrainians and, Belarusians and Chechens and others. So then there were certain issues that came up, which were long, maybe dormant during communism, which united Soviet Union into a great nation. So there was no question of any racial thing under communism at all. So that is why it's a historical nonsense to compare Nazism with communism. So 1 is the answer. And other options, I want to move faster. We've already discussed most of the things, and you have it in your book in any case. So let's move. Okay, but one question here. Here, I ticked 1 because I had read history. I understood that part clearly. Option 3, several ideas of the Nazi regime were directly imported from colonial regimes. Now there's mention of those 2 German terms, and that these were passed on, bequeathed to the Nazi party from the German colonial thing. So that makes Nazism closer to colonialism than it is to communism. Just, let's say, some ideology passed on by German colonial this thing to their Nazi party later, right? I mean, that's a kiddish way of just looking at those things. The real thing is the very core of Nazism was the Aryan race. That was the idea, right? So most CL, IMS, time, everybody ticked 3 as the answer. So by the way, in this passage, most coaching centers got, I think, out of 5 questions, they got probably 3 or 4 wrong. So that is how this this was the reception this passage of CAT got. And this 2006 CAT was made by IM Kozhikode, right? So that professor who made this is a brilliant man. Okay, so 3 is an option trap, which everybody fell into. 1, when CAT answer came, it is 1. But you will still find, in CL's past CAT papers or others, they still stick to their old answers. And you guys, when you probably do it from there, you will get all those wrong answers and think, yes, yeah, right, very right. It's shocking how this coaching industry functions. So anyway, I am trying to do my duty by giving you, being professionally honest and giving you what you deserve to know, so that anything opposite you learn from other sources, you are wary of it, you're careful, right? So please remember this. When you see option 3 as an answer of 4 in any other source, you know it is not right. It is not the original CAT answer. And I have proof with me. So whenever you're in doubt, I'll send you a PDF of, a snapshot of that. Now 5 is a brilliant question by the CAT examiner. Which of the following cannot be inferred as a compelling reason for the silence of the Council of Europe on colonial atrocities. Now, why should this question be asked as such? Because the Council of Europe got Lindblad's report criticizing communism, and he requested that please do this, please do that. They considered that and passed the resolution. In their mind, it never worked about their atrocities and all that. That's all behind in history. We are in 2006, right? Colonialism ended by mid 20th century. So that was never in their mind at all when they were considering Lindblad's report and then passing this resolution in the Council of Europe. But only the author in the passage is criticizing them. That's you're condemning those crimes. Why don't you look at your own crimes before you do that? So the question is, so whenever you come across a cannot be inferred, say what can be inferred and see that out of five, four can be inferred. So see those four clearly first, right? This is the way to attempt cannot be inferred or accept questions. First, see what fit into the answer. So, what can be inferred as a compelling reason? Suppose Council of Europe sitting there, they realize, okay, we are passing this resolution. I'm just saying, suppose, and their mind it stuck that we are condemning all that. I recently read my own history, and we saw we have committed so much. Okay, so he'll obviously, just keep quiet about it because he's now sitting down to consider Lindblad's report and pass this resolution, right? But even if the thought has occurred, he'll obviously suppress it. It's only that the author is bringing out this hypocrisy in this article in The Guardian. So now let's look at what would be inferred as a compelling reason that why they did not talk about their own atrocities. So the Council of Europe is dominated by erstwhile colonists. So why would I try to bring my bad record? Communism bad record was brought out by so many academicians and others in the Black Book of Communism by exaggerating the figures, etc., etc. Now, why would I willingly say that I'm a bad man sitting here? Right? My country has been the worst colonial power in the world, yet I will condemn communism. I mean, I will not be that stupid, right? So, Council of Europe is full of erstwhile colonialists. So, why naturally would not they'll be silent about their bad deeds, right? Of their the blood that they have shed, generating support for condemning communist ideology. Yes, obviously, because you want to condemn communism only to show that capitalism has won and that's the best system. So don't look for alternatives. So this is a compelling reason. Unwilling to antagonize allies by raking up an embarrassing past. So it will be embarrassing to if Belgium raises this, it will be embarrassing to everybody there. Germany, France, Netherlands, etc. Right? So this also can be inferred as a compelling reason why they are quiet. Let's say five. Portraying both communism and Nazism as ideologies to be condemned. Yes, this was the main purpose. And to show that capitalism is therefore the best available, right? Now so 1, 2, 3, and 5 are compelling reasons why they would not talk about their own atrocities. Now, what about 4? Greater value seemingly placed on European lives. So, if in their minds they still continue to think about in their colonial, thinking about superiority of their race over others, then they will, mentally think, yes, I've killed, but those were Indians, yeah, they don't count. Oh, like Kale Hafshi and all these bloody barbarians. So what if I kill them? That's not a crime, right? What did these communists do? They killed bloody Gora Europeans, yeah. So they're very bad. Yeah, we just killed bloody all this muck on the earth, which I don't know how God has bloody produced, right? We only kill them only to bloody educate them, civilize them, improve their lot. So we didn't do anything bad. So if genuinely in their mind they still have colonialistic thinking and superiority of the white race being the predominant premise, and therefore greater value attached to white lives, lives of white people than black people, then obviously uh, they will be they will not even think it to be a crime, and they will be, they don't have to be then silent about it. They can go on the rooftop and say, yes, I killed 10 million bloody kalas. So what will you do? I'm not bad. It is communism and Nazism. They killed whites. So if so, four cannot be inferred as a compelling reason for them to be quiet, because they don't need to hide. It's not a. They didn't do anything wrong to start with. Why should they hide it? Why should they be silent about it? They should be willing to go on the rooftops and shout about it, isn't it? So, if you look at it this way, four clearly is the correct option. And obviously, since others are can be inferred, and this statement was made with a sarcastic tone by the author, कि हाँ, you're not quoting, you're being silent about your atrocities just because you think European lives count for more, huh? Hypocrites, Saleh, right? So they what author had said. So obviously, this is not a compelling reason for being silent, because they didn't do anything bad. They only killed Kalas and Browns and others, right? Who deserve to get killed in any case. Okay, so here we finish with cat. I've got some more questions added, just so that you get the full all aspects of the passage. What can be inferred from the author's views when he states none of this? None of this means the cruelties as mentioned in the Black Book of Communism. None of the cruelties explain why anybody today should be nostalgic about communism in a former communist state who now is enjoying capitalism, the fruits of capitalism, right? High standard of living. There he used to stand in queues. He used to be kicked around. He should be suspected as a capitalist supporter and, kicked around, put in jail. Why would he be nostalgic about so all those cruelties? Why should he be nostalgic about that? So by saying this, he was trying to highlight that you are contradicting yourself. Damn it, Lindblad. Your report on one hand you say this, then you say this. So the answer to this is 5. Now here I have made close options, so this can be a confusing question. So what you can infer from here is that authors trying to say that how can people be nostalgic about brutalities and failures? You're saying brutalities and failures occur, then you say they've been nostalgic. How can they be nostalgic? People cannot be nostalgic about brutalities and failures, right? None of this brutalities and failures you mentioned in your black book of shows that they are nostalgic. How can they be nostalgic? So therefore, they are not nostalgic. So this is what you can infer. So 5 is therefore the answer, right? Let's see the other option. This deserves a little careful thinking. People are not nostalgic about the equality and social justice that existed. Actually, Lindblad is only saying that they are nostalgic about the equality and social justice that existed, right? So this obviously is a misinterpretation of what author said this to pick holes in Lindblad and show their contradiction and show the contradiction in that guy's arguments. People are now enjoying high standard livings, very good, and are not nostalgic of earlier times. But he is saying they are nostalgic, and he's saying and this statement author is mocking him by saying, are they nostalgic about the cruelty, Saleh? Eh? On one hand, you say they're cruelty, then you are saying they're very nostalgic. So, uh, so they are not nostalgic of earlier times, but Lindblad says they are nostalgic and nostalgic about equality and social justice. People are not nostalgic about the mass education and job security that existed. So that is said elsewhere. You see, again, the pointed inference is only from what is given in quotes. So others may sound kind of correct to you. You must go by what is given under in that quotes clearly 5 is your answer, right? Okay. Right, last two questions. What, according to the author, are the challenges faced by the existing system of global capitalism? So, if you see in the last para, he finally ends by saying pressure for looking for alternatives will continue because of these problems with the existing system, right? So in your memory, those you should know last para, last part, the second part of last para is from where this question has been made. So it is imperialistic in nature without any counterweight. It is imperialist, yes, that is stated there. But there is resistance in the Muslim world and Latin America, right? And obviously, we know that there is communism in China and elsewhere. So, without any counterweight offered by any alternative system, this as such is not true because the passage itself says that, and these guys are trying to convey a message to Russia and China, who are China, of course, is fully communist. Russia is not capitalistic; is still trying its own form of authoritarian capitalism. So, alternative system exists in Russia, in China, Latin America, and Muslim world is also rebelling against the global capitalistic system and coming up with so, without any counterweight offered by any alternative system, this obviously is not stated there. It is gobbling up global resources at an accelerating rate. The environmental crisis that has been created by global capitalism because of this stress on consumption, on demand driving growth. So, the constant thing is growth, growth. Everybody sees GDP figures, right? And everybody is trying to make people consume and rise to higher levels standards of living. Okay, so B comes from the environmental crisis, so can be inferred from there. C, it offers elaborate welfare measures to compensate for the failure of the markets. This as such has not been mentioned. It only talks of that there is talk about social justice because capitalism is not providing social justice. Huh? Is it true? Yeah. Okay. So, social justice, capitalism is creating large social inequalities. So, D, yes, D is stated there. So, A, B, and D are stated, right? C is not stated. So, what are the challenges? A, B, and D. Option 1. Okay. 8. The tone of the author in the sentence, perhaps the real problem that communism is not dead enough, etc. They will only be satisfied when they are driven a stake through its heart. So there again he's being sarcastic. Arey yaar, it's dead. Why are you flogging a dead horse? Huh? Will you be only satisfied if you wipe all traces of it from this earth and put a stake into the heart of communism? So he's obviously being sarcastic. That how much more dead do you want it to be? Damn it, tell me. So answer is sarcasm. Despair is lack of hope, bemusement is confusion, resignation is resigning to, okay, I can't change things, I've resigned to reality. Indignation is part of it, but indignant is you're kind of angry at you being treated unfairly, generally, right? Or so here there is sarcasm hidden in it, where he's trying to point out that listen, how foolish of you to still keep flogging a dead horse. Okay, so 5 cat and 3 mine, just so that all parts of the beautiful passage is covered. So, this is how you must derive pleasure from such beautiful passages that are written in by eminent journalists and authors in such, especially in the opinion columns and editorials of such magazines and newspapers. Thank you very much.